Welcome to the Real Estate Investing Podcast, where we help you unlock your potential freedom through land investing, real estate investing, and entrepreneurship. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Investing Podcast. Today we have a special guest, Shelby Wengreen. Shelby has been a very successful land investor and was able to quit her 9-to-5 job through land flipping and has just been a really dedicated member of the land investing online community for quite some time now. And I think a lot of our listeners will really benefit from your story. Shelby, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Sweet. Let's go over your journey. I kind of want to just start by talking about your past job. Like, what did you do in your past job? Just your generic, what did your life look like before land? And then what made you transition from your 9-to-5 to land and where you're at now?
Yeah, before land, I was doing marketing. So I worked at Pinterest for a bit. And then after Pinterest, I worked for a influencer agency where I handled their paid promotion across social platforms. I always kind of knew that was something I enjoyed, but I didn't want to be a 9-to-5 employee for the rest of my life. I had a huge goal of being a stay-at-home mom, like ever since the beginning. I'm not a mom yet, but I want to create the foundation for that moving forward.
Nice.
So, and my husband, he's a school teacher. He's now switching careers to do surveying. So now felt like the time to just give it my full commitment in land and see what I can make happen. After having a couple deals, I feel like really what could make this a full-time gig for me is having more time to send out more mail.
Exactly. What sparked your interest? Because I know you've been in other real estate industries before and not land, and then you kind of transitioned to land. What sparked the interest for land investing?
My uncle actually is the person who told me about land. He did some buying and selling on tax properties here in Utah. So I came to him because he has quite a bit of funds, and I asked him if he'd be willing to be an investor if I could find a fourplex or something along those lines. And he said he didn't really want to invest in that kind of property at the moment, but he would look into land because he saw great success with that when he was kind of starting out in his real estate journey. And he did a little bit of that before transitioning over. So I started looking up all the land podcasts, land, everything I could find online, and that's how I found you.
Did his success at all during the hard times? I'm just curious because obviously business isn't easy. Did his success, him having that help you? Like, did you keep that in the back of your mind that he had some success in land like throughout your journey?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he did quite a few different things in his journey as well. He was a realtor at one point. He did some land investing with a partner. Now he kind of does, he's more on the business side. He focuses on stocks, but still a very successful guy. And him having that much success in land, I knew that land could be successful, and also seeing the community and being surrounded by people who are also being successful in land helped push me along to where I always saw the light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly. And I kind of wanted to transition because I know there are major obstacles in this business. I remember you are a coaching member, so I remember some of the things you and Chase, your partner Chase, were overcoming when we first started working with you, and some of the obstacles and sending mail and not getting some deals. How did you overcome? Like, what were your guys' behind the scene conversations? Where were you guys at in terms of how'd you overcome those situations together?
It was hard. I'm not going to lie. We got our first deal. I joined the program in probably June or July, sent out my first mailer in September, got our first deal in October, and we bought and sold that property within a day and doubled our money. So it was a great experience. Yeah, it was a great experience, a great way for me to be like, wow, I can really make this work. And Chase was my funding partner on that deal. And after that, we decided to become full-time partners. And then we mailed for probably another 6 months. And I thought at the time, I overpriced Teller County. I don't want to do that again. So I mailed a bunch of different counties and underpriced. And then I wasn't getting responses. And it was a huge learning curve from what I thought I was adjusting from my initial pricing. And that's why we joined the coaching program. We really wanted some help to get better in those areas and improve, because we did know that land could work. We've already had it proven to us. We just knew that something we were doing wasn't quite right, and what could we do to adjust and change.
Exactly. So you had that proof of concept pretty early, Ron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously those struggles, everything like that. And what I've seen from you, like obviously we've done a one-on-one coaching, stuff like that, like your growth, but yours and Chase's growth in terms of, I don't think either of you guys are naturally sales people, but I think that kind of grew on you and like you started grinding out deals. Talk about that growth, because a lot of people coming in, like maybe they're good with data, maybe they're good at customer, I don't know. Some people, everyone comes in with missing something. Talk about your growth, like, because I think what you guys were missing was that sales aspect at first. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, with sales, I wouldn't say that I'm naturally a sales professional. I have done sales in some of my former jobs, but I wouldn't ever consider myself a pro. And with sales, I feel like what was really shocking and a hard adjustment coming into land was that I would say, "Hey, here, I'll offer you 20,000." They'll say, "No, I want 40,000." And then us being like, "No, we'll do 22." And then them saying, "Okay." We just didn't see how that was possible. And it felt like an uncomfortable conversation to have. But then after enough experience, you kind of gain that confidence of, oh, these people aren't as serious when they counter with 40,000. They're more willing to take something, even if it's only a couple thousand more than you originally offered.
It's scary. Those conversations can be scary. And like the first few times, especially if it's not like natural as far as that, like, cause it is a little awkward when you're like, okay, I'm not meeting in the middle. I'll meet at 22. You want 40, 22 is the number. And then they say, yes, like it just, I think Dan, just like shooting more shots. That's what we need. That's what we're doing with sending mail. Like it's a shotgun approach. And then as far as the conversation, shooting more shots. Every seller, you should have your final number with them at some point. Just because they shot you 100,000, you offered them 20, doesn't mean there's not a meeting point at 27,000. Like those are real things that happen. Is that kind of what you've seen, Dan, as far as successful members? And I've seen that from Shelby and Chase specifically, like chasing those deals.
Yeah, you got to chase mail's expensive. Leads are expensive. Calls are like, to get those calls, 13 calls on average per every 2,000 mailers. Like that is $150 lead right there. And you got to treat them like that. And I think every single, whether they're calling in mad or whatever, you got to treat them all like it's an expensive lead, I think. And that was such a good nugget you just said, Shelby, getting a call for 40,000. Originally, you used to think that that's no way that they're asking for double. No way we can make that work. That's what we're going to have to sell it for. But they just want to negotiate and they need that money and you're providing that value to them. So for anyone newer out there like that, I try to tell people that and get that point across a lot. Like you'll be shocked at how many wins you'll have from just being firm on a number and negotiating. These people need money. They're calling you for a reason typically.
Yeah, for sure. And I've also noticed that when you do counter, you can have points that are like, well, this is partly in a flood zone or only this amount is usable. And that can also help you feel a little bit more comfortable in those conversations. That was something that I really struggled with. But then once I kind of had that as a crutch, those conversations became a lot easier to have, not being a salesperson by nature.
Yeah, but the hardest conversations, and I want to see your opinion on how you've dealt with these. Like you said, you've overpriced some mail, or
Mm-hmm.
you got to go back to that seller at $40,000 who you offered and say, who signed and is ready to move forward, and say, hey, I can only offer you $22,000 now. So now we're kind of reversing it. We're not going up, we're going down on our word. How's that been for you?
Yeah, those ones are always fun. I feel like typically with those ones, I almost play it as like it's a joke. I reach out to them and I talk to them and I say, hey, when was the last time you visited the property? Like what did you originally buy this property for? I ask a lot of discovery questions, just kind of get to know them a little bit
Mm-hmm.
better. And then halfway through the convo, I'll be like, yeah, so you know, occasionally this happens, but it looks like we overpriced. Land just isn't going for that much in the area, and the best that we can do at this time is this. I know it's not what you heard, and if you wanna move forward with someone else, that's totally fine. But please keep my letter and hold on to it and think about what I've said. And most of the time they'll laugh and they'll be like, no, I totally understand. I thought this was a lot too. So I'm okay moving forward with a lower amount.
Yeah. It's crazy the amount of times people like negotiate down and it works. Like sometimes you got to negotiate up and still try to win those battles. But yeah, negotiating down, especially with defected land. And sometimes these sellers just know, like they just like, okay, yeah, they were prices. I'd love to get 40,000. But like I expected her to say this. Like that's an expected conversation. That's been amazing kind of seeing your guys' growth with that mindset with that. Cause I know it was a struggle for you guys. Do you think your like initial success, 'cause some people come in and their struggle is right off the bat. Like it is right off the bat. Like those first 3 mailers, maybe not don't go as well. They learn a lot. Do you think your success off the bat hurt you or helped you or what?
I think it hurt and helped all at the same time. It helped because it was like I've already had the proof of concept. I know that this can work. I can do this again. I've done it once. But it also hurt because that's not every land deal, as amazing as it is to buy and sell a property within the same day. That doesn't happen most of the time. So I feel like it's been kind of a learning experience since then. We've had some longer days on market. We've had to get more creative with how we sell things. I've had door dashers deliver signs to properties. We've gotten a little creative. You do.
I refer people to your story and then tell them to get creative with it.
Yeah, I just posted it on a property, so we'll see if I get any phone calls today or tomorrow about it. But
Explain that.
it's one of
Explain
my
what you're
favorites.
doing real quick.
Yeah, so typically what I do if I'm self-listing a property using it on the MLS, these like flat rate brokers will charge like $99 to go place a sign on the property. And I'm doing it for sale by owner anyway. So I kind of got a little creative and I DoorDash from like Tractor Supply, Office Max, whatever. I'll DoorDash like the sign, the yard sign sticks, and sometimes I'll include a Sharpie too. And I'll tell the DoorDasher, if you put this in this area, and I normally give them like GPS coordinates, and send some pictures of like the street view of where I want the sign. If you put the sign there with my phone number, I'll tip you an additional $10 once you send a clear picture of the image back to me. And I've done that with probably 5 or so properties, and it's actually been my reason for selling about 3 of those.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's
That's
incredible.
really, really cool. And it's creative. Like so many, like that's not something we teach in the course, guys. I'll be 100% transparent. I don't say post something on DoorDash ever in the course, but it's Shelby kind of just being creative with things, Dan. Like it's selling properties for her, finding a way to get a sign. Getting a sign on a vacant piece of land is not the easiest thing. And it can be really expensive because some of these drone people, they charge a lot of money. That's amazing, Dan.
And that's what we see a lot of successful members doing, Ron. They take it and kind of take things, have an issue. Shelby needs a sign on her property. How do I get a sign? Shelby, I don't even know how you came up with the idea of DoorDash. That wouldn't even crossed my mind. But somewhere along the line, you had that idea and just kind of ran with it, tested it out one time, it worked, and now you have that implemented in your business. And that's what we see a lot of the successful land investors doing, I think. I want to talk about partnerships because you got a deal, got a funding partner for the deal. That funding partner was not your partner at the time, but now he's your business partner, 50-50, correct?
Correct.
So let's talk about that because a lot of people, I'd say probably, I'd say almost half the people in this have some sort of business partner, Ron. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but about half have it. How's that partnership been along the way, through the ups and downs, through the whole process, splitting roles, like in general? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed having Chase as a partner. It's been super helpful to take the workload off of me. And he's a little bit more of a natural salesperson. So he's kind of taken over the sales role since I initially was the person running everything. He takes over that, and he also helps provide the funds. So he's good at the sales aspect. He has the funds to help fund some of our own deals. And I kind of manage the mail and everything else along those lines. He still works a full 9 to 5, so he's pretty busy. And I kind of pick up the slack there.
Nice. And that transition from your 9 to 5 job, as we mentioned earlier, Shelby was able to quit her 9 to 5. Think you do some marketing things on the side still, from my understanding. We can talk about that. But you're able to quit your 9 to 5 because you have this income and this business you're building on the side. What was that? How scary was that transition for you, and what was that like?
It was scary. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's more like taking a leap of faith on myself. I know that I can make this work. I've done a consistent amount of deals. We've done at least one a month for the past 6 months. And I feel pretty good about our deal flow. Plus, we have some bigger deals in the pipeline coming through that I'm really excited about and I feel like can justify me quitting. But I also feel like with quitting, I'll have way more time to focus on mail. And if there's anything that I've noticed since doing land, the more mail you get, the more leads you get, and the more opportunities that you have.
Absolutely. Talk about that a little bit. I know you said you're going after some bigger deals. I know you have a couple in the pipeline. Talk a little more
We love bigger
specifics
deals.
about. Yeah, we love bigger deals. Talk about that. I think there's one particular that you had that you're really excited about. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this deal, it's still in the pipeline, so I don't have any solid numbers for you, but we're acquiring it for 165,000, and we ended up doing a value add for the person who's selling the land. It's a cutoff from their initial property.
Nice.
So it wasn't technically available, but we found a way to make it work, and then we're subdividing that land further to where our profit, gross profit, should be around, like, we buy for 165, sell for 440 to 480.
That should replace some of your income, I would imagine, from
Yeah.
your W-2. That's amazing. And that's it's just an easy value add, Dan. Like she's not doing anything crazy or anything. Like she's sending mail, working the leads, and like finding a solution for sellers. Like we are finding solutions for these sellers. Simple little survey that she's doing. Go ahead though, Dan. You had something to add.
Yeah, I want to talk about that because she said a cutoff. I want to explain to the listeners what a cutoff is. So I'm assuming, Shelby, by cutoff, you offered someone who had their actual primary house on it, primary residence on it, and they had land. How many acres was it?
Their overall acreage was around 70 something acres, and
And
we're
you're keeping
taking
how
30.
many? You're taking 30. So they had 70 something acres, and then they want to sell 30 of them to make some money on their land or get the cash that they need. That is an extremely high value add. Like people, they own 78. They don't need all 78. They've been there long enough to know they don't need all 78. They're not using it all. Shelby got talking to them, ended up proposing that they can cut it off, doing all that, got a survey form. It's a really, really strong value add. And that's a niche in itself, like sending property owners with a primary residence with over 50 acres of it and offering to cut some land off. Like that's a niche itself. And you kind of ran with that. And I love to hear about that.
It definitely is. That's interesting. Like you literally could send mail for exactly what you're doing. Like I don't know the rate of success. We've never targeted it. We've done these projects, but you could literally, like Daniel said, 50 acres plus, send mail to them. They have a primary residence on it. Just say like we have a surveyor, and that's what I would say in my letter, Dan, is I have a surveyor who can get this survey done in 3 weeks. We'd love to buy a portion of your land. I understand you own 50 acres, X acres. We'll buy up to 70% of your land. You can keep the rest for X dollars per acre. So that is a niche in itself, and there's so much opportunity in this. What's kind of the future with so you're gonna make a couple $100,000 on that as long as everything goes well. What's kind of your future goals in land? What are you targeting the next 6-12 months? You're doing this full time. Like what's your goals?
Our goals for this year was to reach 500K, and then we had 6 months of nothing. But luckily, one big deal can make up the difference. And so I think we'll be able to make that by the end of the year as long as everything goes smoothly with this property. Next year, we'd like to double that, if not more. So we're aiming for $1 million in gross profit, and we'll see if we end up adjusting to something bigger halfway through the year.
Mm-hmm. So Shelby, going on that, like you're talking about making $1 million gross profit next year, $1 million plus. I think you'll do more than that if you keep up what you're doing. It's a big mindset with that. And I think there's way bigger stuff, but a lot of people like listening. It's just the idea of the possibilities of that is just crazy to them. I think a lot of people. Where was your mindset? I don't know, 18 months ago, 2 years ago. Did you think you would have a business that would be hoping to make $1 million in 2024? Or what was your kind of mindset? What was the journey of like your mindset shift, if it was at all, or maybe you just always had that bigger mindset?
I have not always had that bigger mindset. I think it initially started, I had like a fitness journey, and I really discovered myself in fitness. And then I was like, well, if I can do this in fitness, what can I do in my personal life? Like, what do I want to improve on with finances, and where do I want to be? I've always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So then I kind of I was gravitated towards real estate. And then when real estate happened, I went in and I was all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at this course. But they kind of teach a little bit more about cash flow and owning properties, which is still something I want to do, but it's what I want to reinvest my land money into to help with taxes and other things like that. I quickly realized that I won't be able to retire and quit my job in the next 5 years if I'm only cash flowing $100 from a property. Like, it'll take a lot of properties for me to get to that kind of money, which is why I eventually ended up in land. And then honestly, I just kind of thought that it might be a side business, like something that I do on the side. I make 100,000 a year or whatever, and I'm happy. But from there, I think that being in the course in the community, it's really opened my eyes to what's possible for other people. Like, initially starting, you would think, oh, $1,000 and $100 a month or whatever the course is a lot of money. But really, when you consider that that can be done in one deal and you 5 extra money, 10 extra money from investing in the course, it's kind of crazy. My concept of money has kind of changed. I'll look at 25,000 and not think that it's that big of a deal, where 3 years ago that was a new car or something. So
yeah, going off that too, I was talking to someone yesterday, and I used to own an e-commerce store and drop shipping stores and things like that, and those were like, if you have like a $3,000 a month store, $4,000 a month, you like have a successful store. And I'm like, that is just such a fraction of what we see in land. Like, the cash flow wise in land's the craziest thing about it. And that's what we do, just like you're talking. We preach use land, use the profit from land because it's extremely lucrative, to buy real estate, to get that long term, because traditional real estate's very competitive, and you just don't get the cash flow you see in land. So let's use land as our main income source and then invest it in properties. I think that as a whole is such a solid strategy.
I thought the interesting thing she said, Dan, was like the mindset shift around money. I think that's such an important thing. Like, a couple years from now, you're gonna like scoff over $1 million. Like, that's the mind. It's gonna keep on growing. Like, that mindset just keeps on growing. And I think surrounding yourself with people like that, everything like that, is really important. You said a lot about like the community. Are you in that accountability group? Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Talk about that little. So within our Discord community, we also, if you're a member, you get into an accountability group with a smaller group of people that are all kind of on the same path, the same journey. They're started around the same time, similar experiences. Talk about like that accountability group, what it's done for you, how it's helped you grow.
Well, there's a ton of people in the accountability group, all kind of from the same stretch of land, I guess. We all started fairly early and around the same time, but there's also very vast differences in like our experiences in land. Like, we have people who are doing 600, 1,000 deals that are turning into $1 million, and just kind of learning how people are doing in their land business, what they're doing, what they're seeing, what areas they're focusing on, and new strategies that they're kind of testing out and trying. Has been super helpful for my land business and trying new things. Like, I think I brought the DoorDash thing to the accountability group, and people are always trying new things, learning new things, and it's been super helpful to learn in a tight-knit community where you're not afraid to share things, because you know you won't stab each other in the back, about what you're doing in land.
What about like the evolution of that group? Because we try to pair people up. Ron and I handpick these groups, and we're like, we think they're on the same page as them, and they're sending about the same mail, and they're dedicated. They want us to quit all that stuff. And we handpick groups and kind of put them so everyone's kind of in the same boat, relatively. Talk about the evolution of that, because obviously when you started the accountability group, a lot of the people in the group probably weren't doing many deals. They're newer. How's that evolution looked for that group?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to see the dollar amount of deals. Starting out, I feel like a lot of us were doing like buy for 20, sell for 40 to 60. And now you see at least every accountability group call I've been on, somebody's making 100K. It feels like every other week. So it's kind of crazy to see how that's changed with everyone.
That's amazing. That's really cool. And like, you're tackling that buy for 150, whatever it was, sell for 400. Michael's doing that buy for 100. You said there's a $600,000 purchase. Like, that's what we are really trying to push, as Dan, is like these bigger deals. And the nice thing about like having a small group like that, there's obviously money outside of that group as well, is you guys are tackling big deals together. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some people in the group are funding other people's deals in the group. A lot of people working together. It's really cool.
Yeah, the size of the group, the size of the deals in general in the community, it blew my, like Matt last night, he's in the group, right? He brought me like a $900,000 opportunity or something. I was like, goodness, this is getting crazy, but I love to see it. That's the way we're pushing for things, Ron.
big deals, big projects, everything like that. And that's the coolest thing is like people building relationships. Like no one thought like there's people coming in with $5,000 who join this group. They're very active in the group and then they get a deal that's $700,000 purchase price. And we put our trust into them. Like that is the amazing thing about it. But that's really cool. And that group doesn't have any failed people. I don't think anyone like isn't doing thing. I think the motivation, you guys are motivating each other and like maybe competing subconsciously almost like who's going to get the next $1 million or who's going to get the $1 million deal, like anything like that. I think
Definitely.
it is like that in that group, which is really cool. What kind of advice would you give, Shelby, someone looking into this business? Let's say if they have $5,000 saved, they have a 9 to 5, very, very similar in terms of you had a 9 to 5 starting out, they have $5,000 saved. They're thinking about land investing, whatever it is. What kind of advice would you give someone just starting out?
I'd say that it works. Just give it time, and see what areas you need improvement on. Do you need improvement on your sell side? Do you need improvement on maybe your mail price? It does work. It just may take time while you're learning the first little bit. But your first deal will come, and then that first deal will make up for, even if you sent 10,000 mailers, it'll make up for that before you even got a deal.
Absolutely. That's good advice. Like, yeah, it works, guys. It's, be a part of our weekly calls. We have weekly calls on YouTube or Zoom. So kind of seeing that in action, we try to give a lot of free value here. Any other questions for Shelby, Dan? This was a really, really valuable.
No, I think this was really valuable to people just starting out and people just, hitting the ground running, sending mail. Everyone runs into obstacles eventually, and I always want to hound that and touch on that point like we did with Shelby earlier, because overcoming those is just any business you're going to run into them, so it's important to have that in your mind going forward, I think.
Dan, she said, before we ended, Dan, she said 6 months. Like that is a lot of time. 6 months, and now she's making $300,000 on a property on the back end of that 6 months. But if she would have quit month 2, she would have quit month 3 of like struggle instead of trying to figure stuff out. Like that, she's working her marketing job still. She's still a Pinterest wherever she was. But it's the fortitude and like the ability to fight through those tough times is what makes everyone in this business.
And that's what's so important about the community too, I think. To just when you're going through those hard times, seeing other people's success. Yeah, it sucks, I'm sure, but you're like, okay, if Jack's doing it over here, then why can't I get a deal this big or whatever it is, and just seeing that success, continuing to move forward, continuing to put one foot forward after another, because eventually you hit small win after small win and small win. Shelby didn't think she was going to have a $1 million business 2 years ago, and now after small win, sent your mail, got your first deal, got a big deal, and you just keep compounding, and then eventually you just believe in it, believe in the business, know what you're doing, and you have $1 million business after that. So really, really good episode. Thank you for joining us, Shelby. As always, thank you for joining. Please do us a huge favor and like and subscribe our YouTube channel and share this with a friend. It really means the world to Ron and I, but more importantly, it could help change the life of someone else. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next episode.